Good afternoon, Rotarians and guests. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Toledo. Today we'll present another great meeting and program with Michael Dempsey, president of Altcoin Science. But before we proceed with our meeting, it was with great sadness that I inform you that Adam Jackson, the son of Toledo Rotarian Reg Jackson, passed away yesterday at the age of 39 in Cleveland. Please remember Adam's family and all of Reg's family in your prayers. We also have a card at the front table for Reg and his family if you'd like to sign it on your way out. At this time, I'd like to ask Butch Kruger to deliver a reflection and have Michelle McCaster lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Then please remain standing after that as past President George Eistetter leads us in the four-way test.
Inasmuch as I'm a better prayer than a reflector, we'll have a prayer. Let us pray. Lord, as we continue this new Rotary year, lead us to be of benefit to those organizations and people needing a hand up, be it locally, regionally, nationally, or internationally. Thank you for this good food and good fellowship around each table. In thy name we pray. Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Past President George.
I'm right here. First, is it the truth?
Is it the truth?
Second, is it fair to all concerned?
Is it fair to all concerned?
Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships?
Will it build goodwill and better friendships?
And fourth, will it be a benefit to all concerned?
Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you, Past President George. And thank you, Butch and Michelle. As we begin our meeting, I'd like to thank and acknowledge this month's sponsor, Spengler Nathanson, PLL. I'm informed we do not have any visiting Rotarians today, but if anyone has a guest they would like to introduce, would you please go to the floor mic so we can hear you and see you and your guest as well.
President Dick, I'd like to introduce Luke Serrano, who is an intern at the Opera this fall, and he is a student still at Bowling Green State University.
Great. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
President Dick, it's a real privilege and pleasure for me to introduce my granddaughter, Margaret Molly Martindale. Molly is a Toledoan, a graduate of Notre Dame Academy, and a senior at Lafayette College. She also happens to be the great-great-granddaughter of Frank Mulholland, the president of Rotary International back in the years 1916-17. Wow. Her grandfather was also president of this club, and her great-grandfather, so that's three greats.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Molly wanted to know a little bit more about Rotary, so I said, well, the best way to find out is to come and see the friendship and fellowship around these tables. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for being here.
President Dick and fellow Rotarians, I have two guests with me today. First is Gina Huring, and Gina works at a nonprofit called A Gifted Generation. They support education in countries like Haiti. So there's certainly a lot that Rotary in our district has to offer. And also, Giselle Johnson. And Giselle and her husband run DG Johnson Associates, a business consulting organization.
Nice to have you both here.
President Dick, fellow Rotarians, I'd like to introduce Robert Hall of Kelly Services and is a prospective member.
Welcome.
President Dick, I have 5 guests with me today. I want to start off with Tiffany Pollard and Nick Rediger from William Bond & Associates. And then next I have Jim Freilich and Todd Schiavone, Jim and Todd work with me at DMC. Last but not least is Dave Litzenberg. Dave's a financial advisor with Northwest Mutual.
Great. Thank you. Thank you all for being here today. It's great to have so many guests.
President Dick, I'd also like to introduce my wife, Barb, who lately has been taken to calling me her first husband, Chuck, and our daughter, Katie Schrader, excuse me, I mispronounced her name. This is great. Who is a media specialist for Danbury and also is, more importantly, is mother to our 2.3 grandchildren, Kate.
Welcome. Great to have you with us. Now would be a great time to check into social media to let everyone know you're at the Rotary Club of Toledo. And then as soon as you're done with that, please silence your cell phones so you can fully enjoy our program today. I'd now like to invite Steve Miller to the floor mic to give an announcement about the Vassar Memorial Golf Outing.
President Dick, fellow Rotarians, the 6th annual Jim Vassar Memorial Golf Outing will take place at Spuyten Duyvil on Saturday, September 15th at 1 o'clock. Jim was a longtime member of the club as well as a board member. We lost him to brain cancer 6 years ago, and we're raising money for the Toledo Rotary Foundation as well as some other charities that his wife is raising money for. So it's a great time. We have a lot of fun. He was a huge Buckeye fan and an Ohio State alum. It's hard for me to say that coming from a Michigan alum, but we had a great relationship, and the Buckeye game will be on. I believe they play TCU that evening. We'll be on after the golf outing, so hopefully we can see you there. Thanks.
Right. Thanks, Steve. I want to echo that. Please support the golf outing on September 15. Jim was a great member, and it does benefit Rotary and some other great causes. Now I'd like to invite Rick Marshall to the floor mic to announce Zoo Day on September 28th.
Thank you, President Dick. Fellow Rotarians, we are excited that the Disabilities Committee's annual Zoo Day is coming up on Friday, September 28th. We really want to encourage all of our members, especially newer members who have not participated in the Zoo Day before, to sign up for this event. We will meet at the zoo at 9 o'clock in the morning, and we'll spend the morning walking around with students from the Glendale Fieldbox School. Then we'll gather again and meet at the Broadway Pavilion for a picnic lunch at 11:30. It's a really fun event with a lot of tradition in the Toledo Rotary, and we really want to encourage you to sign up. You can do that by going to the homepage at toledorotary.org and scroll down to the bottom of the page, or you can follow a link in the Spoke newsletter, which will be coming out soon. So we hope to see you there. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. That, too, is a great event, and we have a long history with the Glendale Fieldbox School, so please sign up for that. A couple of brief announcements. We kicked off our vetting of the transformational projects with the Strategic Planning Committee today before this meeting, and we're excited about it. It's going to be a long process, but there will be much more to hear and much more to come on that in the months ahead. I also heard from President-elect Tim Ryan that today marks the second year in a row, it's 2 years, that the country of Nigeria has been polio-free. So I think that deserves some applause. We'll be hearing more from Tim on where we are with polio worldwide in a couple of weeks. At this time, I'd like to invite past President Chuck Mann back to the podium and welcome Chuck as an honorary member of the Toledo Rotary Club. The qualifications for an honorary member of this club are a person who has served with merit and distinction in furtherance of Rotary ideals. The procedure is for an honorary member to be nominated and presented to the Council of Past Presidents. The Council of Past Presidents considers and reviews the nomination and then makes a recommendation to the Rotary Board of Directors. Candidates for honorary membership shall have impeccable personal character and a reputation for business and professional ethics, and for service to others in charitable, educational, cultural, business, or government fields. Candidates must have demonstrated a continual willingness to share time, talent, or treasure for the benefit of the community and deep and sustained service in activities which benefit others, personal qualities of idealism and selfishness. The board, of course, unanimously approved the recommendation for Chuck Mann to be an honorary member, and I can think of no one who has fulfilled these ideals than past President Chuck. So please stand and honor Chuck Mann.
So I wasn't home when President Dick called last week, last Monday, and he went to the answering machine. The answering machine, he said, "Please call me." And I thought, well, it's finally happened. I've gotten into trouble of some sort. And then I went over last week, and it was Phyllis Diller, and there was a joke about I had so many kids that it was like midgets at a bus stop, and I'm thinking I offended a midget. I don't think we have one in the club, but I should have called them a small person, and hopefully that's not the case, but I'm honored beyond words. Thank you very much.
It was actually the lawyer joke, Chuck, that was the problem. This time I'd like to invite past President Eric Fankhauser to the podium to present a grant check to Karen McConnell from the Reentry Coalition of Northwest Ohio.
Thank you, President Dick. On behalf of the Toledo Rotary Foundation, it's my pleasure today to present a grant check in the amount of $10,000 to the Reentry Coalition of Northwest Ohio. The grant is for reentry assistance for formerly incarcerated individuals or individuals at risk of incarceration who had behavioral disorders. Our Community Service Committee members received the request, participated in the vetting process, and made the decision to recommend the grant for approval to our club board and foundation trustees, and the grant was recently approved. So did you know that last Rotary year, our club and our foundation granted over $200,000 in grants to organizations? This is only possible because of your generous contributions to the Rotary Club of Toledo Foundation. Just imagine what we could do if 100% of our club contributed to our foundation. If 75% of the club contributes, which is the percentage we had last Rotary year, that leaves about 100 members that do not contribute. I challenge you to be generous and support your foundation and try to get as close to 100% giving as possible. You can rest assured the grants that are awarded go through a thorough vetting process. Starting at the very beginning of the process, due diligence is performed at the committee level, progresses to the Foundation Advisory Committee, to the club board, and ultimately the club foundation. There's much discussion and negotiation and follow-up that takes place to ensure that the funds are awarded to organizations that are in need. They do what they say they're going to do with the funds and provide proof positive the funds are spent in the manner that was proposed. In addition, our relationship with the Toledo Community Foundation adds an additional assurance that our funds are going to eligible organizations complying with the appropriate laws and policies. As President Dick has been encouraging new members to do, I too encourage you to attend committee meeting of your choice to see if it fits into your personal Rotary objective. Committees are where the fun is, and you get to know your fellow Rotarians on a more personal level, which is important in a club of our size. Attend a committee meeting and see how you like it. So now I'd like to invite Karen McConnell from the Reentry Coalition of Northwest Ohio to come to the podium and accept the grant and share a short version of how our foundation's gift of $10,000 has helped their organization.
good afternoon, and thank you for this wonderful gift. On behalf of the Reentry Coalition board members, we are extremely excited and grateful for this gift. With the money that we receive, we're able to help 196 individuals coming home from prison or at risk of going to prison gain employment, get their birth certificate, state IDs, bus passes. That sounds like, minutia to us. We all know how to get around. We have transportation. But if someone's coming back home, they don't even know how to get a bus pass or how to have a state ID or something to identify them as a citizen. So your help is invaluable. We can't do it without you, and we truly thank you. And we look forward to much more partnership in the future. Thank you so much.
Now I'd like to invite Rotarian Ernie Brookfield to the podium to introduce new member Jim Boswell.
Thank you, Dick. Fellow Rotarians, it's my pleasure to introduce my neighbor and friend Jim Boswell as a new member of Rotary. Jim is currently the Director of Finance at Marco's Franchising Pizza. They have about 2,700 franchises in the United States, and I must say it's great to have a pizza man in the club. Jim is an alumnus of Missouri State University, where he earned his degree in finance. He then went to Florida and got his MBA at the University of Central Florida. Jim worked for Darden, which was a dining company that managed the Olive Garden, Longhorn, and several other areas. And then after several years, he moved from Orlando to Toledo, where he's been here for several years now, I think about 5. He's been a member of our Corey Woods Homeowners Association. He's been a terrific neighbor, and he's a hardworking guy and the father of 2 lovely young men named Jimmy and Brooks. Jim and his wife, Christy, live in Corey Woods, and they have 2 dogs, and they did have 1 cat, but the cat's deceased. But I think he will be just the kind of person that we're looking for in Rotary, not to mention the pizzas. So, warm Rotary welcome to Jim.
Now at this time, I'd like to invite Rotarian Joe Sharp to the podium to introduce our presenter, Michael Dempsey.
Good afternoon. It is my pleasure to introduce Michael Dempsey, founding member and president of Altcoin Science and senior vice president of Thread Marketing Group. Mike has a Bachelor of Science degree from Bowling Green State University. He is a member of the eMarketing Association and started programming when he was 11 years old. Mike has partnered with multiple blockchain companies across the country and has developed a proprietary method for keeping crypto investors safe. He has experience with blockchain technology, ICOs, which is initial coin offerings, cryptocurrency mining, and cybersecurity. Mike will be providing an overview of blockchain technologies and cryptocurrencies while providing examples of how this technology is changing life across our planet. Please welcome Mike.
First off, I'd like to thank everyone for having me here today to speak about blockchain and cryptocurrency. I've tried to keep it at a very high level. I know a lot of people come up to me and ask me for some more technical details if they're in the space, and I'd be happy to talk to you after. But we're going to keep it a little bit high level for now. So we can start the show. There we go. All right. So first, this is my dog, and not to try to outdo you and your dog, and sorry about the cat. I was informed this morning as I was getting ready that yesterday was National Dog Day. And we didn't do anything for our dog, and my wife was very upset about this. So I figured, I'm not sure what you're supposed to do for a dog, but I did this, so there you go. All right. So let's talk about the blockchain. There's really many different types of blockchain. But for our purposes today, we're going to talk about the two real main types, and that's centralized blockchain and decentralized blockchain. So an example of a centralized blockchain would be IBM's software called Hyperledger. So IBM's developed the software, they control the software, therefore it's a centralized organization. The one that's more exciting to me and other people in the technology world is a decentralized blockchain. An example of that would be Bitcoin. So there is no one entity controlling a decentralized blockchain. And I know that's a little weird, but we'll go into it more. So at the absolute fundamental level, a blockchain is simply a shared, immutable ledger for recording history of transactions. That's its purpose. That's what it does. So let's break it down to maybe even more of a simpler level with an example. So when the internet started, we had computers, software, and networking talking together. That was the infrastructure of the internet. There was no websites, there was no emails, there were very, very basic technologies of things we could do with the internet. Then as the internet evolved, and in this example, the internet is the infrastructure. And as the internet evolved, we put websites on the internet. And you can kind of think of those like cryptocurrencies. Every website has a specific purpose. Amazon for e-commerce, Facebook for social media. Each cryptocurrency has a special purpose as well. So you hear this in the news. People keep asking me why it's a big deal. Why should I care about it? So the main two things, the reasons you should care about it is one, the decentralization, and we'll go into that more like I said, and it's immutable. This technology is 100% fraud-proof. It cannot be scammed, it cannot be altered, it can't be frauded in any way. So, maybe still not impressed with that. So, let's look at this, something everyone cares about, right? So, unfortunately, these are our financial headlines for the past few years. And our centralized banks have been scamming us, ripping us off, putting illegal and illicit practices in place, and they continue to get called out by the federal government and fined by the federal government for some of the practices they do. So, obviously, we care about that. We care about our money. So, now when I say decentralized and immutable technology provides absolute trust, this is the big deal. A financial system on blockchain cannot be compromised by fraud. It's impossible because of the technology that's in place. So then you say, well, Mike, I see all the time in the news, cryptocurrency is stolen, fraudulent exchanges get shut down, crazy stuff's going on. And it's right, some of it is true. Any place in today's society to make a quick buck is full of scam artists. We all know this. And lots of these exchanges aren't regulated exchanges. They're fly-by-night that people got tricked into using. And when people talk about cryptocurrency stolen, really what usually happened is the people don't understand enough of how to secure your cryptocurrency. So for instance, money can get stolen from your bank account if you use a weak password on the website and I go out there and figure what it is, I can take your money. It's that simple. It's very similar with cryptocurrencies. If you don't use strong cybersecurity practices, I can easily take your money. Not that I will. So, who's really in this space? Well, IBM got in this space very early on. They're probably the technology leader here. And we talked about their Hyperledger software. So IBM is developing centralized software to help businesses run on the blockchain. The next gentleman here, Fred Smith, Chairman, CEO of FedEx, he went on the record to say, if you don't embrace the blockchain, your business will go extinct. So think about FedEx, what they do every day. Global shipping and logistics. Imagine how many thousands of people they employ to track packages, trucks, people, freighters, airplanes going all over the world. Well, they're working on replacing, unfortunately, it will displace a lot of people, but blockchain technology, AI, and machine learning can do all of that for them. So Steve Wozniak, I'm a big fan of his, Apple co-founder. He's hoping Bitcoin will become the single global currency. So where else is this in use today? Well, it's in use in thousands of places, but here's a few good examples. So the United Nations has developed a blockchain system to save them millions of dollars in bank transfer fees. Lockheed Martin, working with Guardtime Federal, built a blockchain system so they could be audited by the federal government to show they weren't doing any fraudulent practices. And DHL is working with IT company Accenture right now to build a prototype on the blockchain to stop pharmaceutical black market practices and trades. So some pretty important stuff going on here with blockchain. So, blockchain's really smart. Blockchain's awesome. Blockchain can do way more than I can tell you about today. And, if blockchain is as smart as this guy, Bitcoin and crypto are a little different. So it's still just as smart, but we have some unknown components here, right? We got maybe a guy, we don't know if he's shady, we don't know if he's legit, but he's in the background, he's not really hurting anything, so we'll just be skeptical of him for now. So someone who really doesn't believe in it is Jamie Dimon, who came out, you probably saw the news, called it an absolute fraud, absolute scam. If any of his employees were caught purchasing or trading Bitcoin, they'd be fired on the spot. And then you'll see in the news too, Bitcoin will blow up, Bitcoin's a bubble, Bitcoin won't work. So here's a fellow that doesn't agree. His name's Andreas Antonopoulos. He holds multiple computer science degrees from the University of London. He's a best-selling author. He's considered an expert in this space. And I'm going to let him kind of rebuke Jamie Dimon's claim about Bitcoin being a scam.
A couple of weeks ago, Jamie Dimon criticized Bitcoin. Could you encapsulate briefly what his criticism was and then how you would rebut it? Because I'm very interested in the topic.
I believe his specific criticism was, and I may paraphrase, that Bitcoin is a fraud that has no financial basis and is not backed by anything. That was the criticism by Jamie Dimon, head of JP Morgan Chase, who actually got fined $2 billion for mortgage fraud, which JP Morgan Chase paid by committing more mortgage fraud. I don't know if you've seen that news. That was particularly fascinating. And they did this all on the dollar, which is backed by, oh, right. So, I think my most honest reaction is Jamie doth protest too much, methinks. And it's interesting how the head of the largest investment bank in the world finds time in his very, very busy day to speak about a nothing, an irrelevant little technology that has no impact on the world. It's almost disconcerting that he would pay so much attention. By the way, as he was saying that, JP Morgan traders were buying Bitcoin. So, I will give you a prediction which I've made before. The world's banks have never faced competition from the internet. They need to learn really quickly that when the internet comes from your industry, it doesn't end well. Look at all the other industries that faced intense competition from the internet. Well, the internet is now coming for banking. And the result of that will be that banks and their executives will not only lose their industry or their power in the industry, but they will go through the 5 stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. It starts with denial. Bitcoin can't possibly work. It will surely crash any second now. 9 years later, that's not working so well. Anger. Terrorists, drug dealers, pornographers, make it stop. That's not working, because the governments figure out you can't make it stop. Bargaining. We like blockchain, but not Bitcoin. Doesn't work so well, and so on and so forth. The internet is coming for banking, and like every industry before it, the industry heads think, we will weather this storm. After all, we've been doing this for centuries. Good luck. I hope you keep that attitude until the very end.
So, pretty strong words from Andreas there, but most of us in technology believe that it's going to happen. We're not going to carry money around. We're not going to run to banks and pay transaction fees. And, think about all the time we spend with checks and banking and investments and, everything with banks. I can do all that on my smartphone with blockchain and Bitcoin, and I never have to leave my home or office. Okay. So what exactly is Bitcoin? So Bitcoin was the first cryptocurrency to be created back in 2009. There are over 1,000 other cryptocurrencies now. So Bitcoin is simply a blockchain that's running algorithms to create currency. And it's governed and secured by cryptography, processes we use during the war to secure messages. This cryptography encrypts the transaction and secures the transaction, once again, making it immutable and fraud-proof. So let's talk a little bit about the crazy volatility of Bitcoin's price. So if we look at January 1st, 2017, and I have gold on there too to reference, just a reference, like I said. So January 1st, 2017, one Bitcoin is valued at $960. Then a few months later, July 11th, shot up to $2,365 per Bitcoin. Move a few months more forward, November 9th, one coins equals $7,265. Move 3 weeks forward, it's skyrocketing to $9,700 a coin. Move into middle of December, now we're at almost $18,000 per coin. It ended 2017 at around $20,000 per coin. Now, a few months ago, dropped to $8,300 a coin, And today we sit at about 6,700 a coin. The market's going down. So anyone who thinks this was, a get-rich-quick scheme, if you bought in at 900 and you sold at 17,000, you're pretty darn happy. If you bought at 17,000 and now at 6,900, you're not so happy, right? But this is a very volatile and speculative investment. A lot of people have made a lot of money doing this. A lot of people have lost a lot of money doing this. So people ask me all the time, well, what can I do with Bitcoin? How can I shop? Well, it's a part of the Internet of Things. So these are retailers that take Bitcoin as payment, and there are thousands more in Europe and Asia. Europe and Asia are much more into this market than the United States currently is. So here is a list of Bitcoin ATMs, and you can see we have 3 in the Toledo area. Probably a lot of you didn't even know that. So let's do a little FYI. Don't believe 90% of what you hear or read in the media. This is a very technical, emerging technology, and it's very complex, and most reporters don't understand enough about it to accurately report on it. Think of the different coins like a commodity, similar to gold. So I might hold my Bitcoin, and it shot up to 17, and it then hit down to 6,900. Some people predict it'll hit 1 million. Some people predict it'll hit 1 trillion. It's, those are right at this point, they're worthless. They're speculation. But if I believe that and I hang on to it, who knows what's going to happen? So another thing to think about, all of these cryptocurrencies are created with a specific purpose in mind, a problem to solve. So Bitcoin is for finance. We mentioned the United Nations using Ethereum. Ethereum is a coin and a software that provides smart legal contracts. So a legal contract embedded in software. That's what Ethereum does. Then we have to understand you need, if you want to play in this space or work in this space, there's scammers everywhere. Just like I said, wherever there's a quick buck to be made, you need trusted partners who are legitimate and reliable to work with in this space. Governments across the globe are trying to regulate and control the market. Unfortunately, they can't control a decentralized blockchain. South Korea tried to ban Bitcoin. They didn't really understand that they would pretty much have to shut down their internet to ban Bitcoin. And people rioted in the streets when they tried to do that because so many of them use it as currency now. So if you're going to shut down a decentralized blockchain, you basically have to have overriding control of that blockchain. Well, that blockchain's running globally on the internet in tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of servers across the world. How are you going to shut that down? So, lastly, something to understand is there are legitimate exchanges that exist. They're regulated. They'll insure your cryptocurrencies. And at the end of the day, this is still in technology in its infancy, okay? And we talked about Bitcoin being unfraudable. Bitcoin started in 2009. The blockchain that runs it is running 24/7, 365 days a year. It is under constant attack thousands of times a day. In 9 years, it's never been hacked. It's never been breached. That's the immutable part of the blockchain. Questions?
Thank you for your presentation. You made a point on that last slide about Bitcoin as a commodity like gold, except you only made one comparison to where it's like gold. And in other words, that you could speculate on what it might be worth in the future.
Right.
It shares almost no other characteristics of commodities like gold and grain, which are based in real markets, exist as a reality, and are affected in value by things that happen in the global economy, weather, etc. There are futures on grains. So expand on that a little bit, because it sounds like you made it sound like it's a commodity, but it really isn't a commodity. I don't think that's a comparison you can make.
So where we see it as a commodity, like gold is, or diamonds, we've been told for years, invest in gold and diamonds because they're so rare. Yet every year, we dig in the ground and we find countless ounces of gold and diamonds. I haven't seen any rarity. I can walk into 15 jewelry stores at the mall and they're full of gold and diamonds. So where this becomes another, like a commodity, is its rarity. There are 21 million Bitcoins. There will never be one more. Never.
Okay, thank you. My limited understanding is that Bitcoin is a bit like a chain of title, that you carry all the transactions that had occurred before through time, and it's like a giant snowball that just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And the understanding is that what happens as that goes on in time is that it takes up more and more computer server power, and that this may be the Achilles heel of Bitcoin. Do you get a sense that that can be overcome, or do some of the other cyber currencies avoid that problem?
So some of these currencies do totally avoid that problem. One of them is called Filecoin, and it's used with decentralized storage, so essentially cloud storage on the internet. So storage is a lot easier to maintain. It doesn't require all the heat and power needed, like Bitcoin mining. And the mining is the root of the transaction. The miners are the people who put the expensive servers in place. They pay for the electricity. They get paid with their proof of stake, and they get rewarded when they solve these algorithmic and cryptographic math problems. They get rewarded in Bitcoin for doing that. So as Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, the longer they last, the harder those algorithms become. So we have to get more advanced technology, and we have to throw more money at it, and we have to use more power. But then the belief of the miner is that Bitcoin, that's 6,000 now, if I mine all year with the latest, greatest technology, it's going to be worth 20,000. So it's worth it to the miner. And other technologies that don't use proof of stake blockchain aren't nearly as expensive and draining on the power grid and things like that. But you're totally right, Bitcoin is. Well, the problem is we keep throwing up more servers. We keep making more servers and throwing them in racks and in network operation centers. And, between Google, Microsoft, Apple, let alone, Amazon, the amount of servers they maintain is staggering. The amount of mining units maintained by professional miners. So Genesis Mining is the largest mining company in the world. They're legitimate, they're regulated, they're in Europe. They started their business because they all became billionaires from investing in mining Bitcoin very early on when it was worth cents, and they accumulated thousands and thousands of coins. So when they all became billionaires, they said, we're going to open up the biggest mining operation in the world. That's what they did. It's a secret location in Europe. And they specifically put the mining operation somewhere where it's extremely cold. So that helps with the cooling. They also put the mining operation place in Europe that has some of the lowest power costs in the world. That helps with that. Now, I will tell you their power bill, even with those reduced power costs, is over $1 million per month. So they will be opening 3 more locations in the next coming years, all undisclosed locations, but they're making tons of money on this, and they can throw up servers at an incredible rate. And their technology is so insane. Where they're at, like I said, it's always very cold, so it's always snowing, raining, whatnot. The roof of the building is open, and it has fans pushing the heat out. These guys are so smart that they figured out how much heat these machines throw off, and when it meets the cold air and snow, it immediately evaporates before it can even enter the building with a giant hole in their roof.
So I'm trying to understand what backs the value of the Bitcoin itself. And I'm kind of putting this in terms that I sort of understand. If the gold standard backed U.S. currency up until the middle of the 20th century, now it's the full faith and credit of the U.S. government. Correct. Commodities and the value that they bring to the market is what backs stocks. What is the mechanism for backing the value of Bitcoin?
So right now, it's speculation and technology. So most technologists believe that my child, if he was born today, will never hold a dollar bill in his hand because it's just an archaic way of doing business. We also believe that my children won't drive a car because autonomous cars will be driving us. General Motors is posed to release 30% autonomous vehicles next year. That's huge. And we all know autonomous vehicles are coming. We all know, like Andrea said, what does the internet do to Blockbuster Video, Barnes & Noble, all the, Amazon just destroyed a lot of industries. Now we have the technology and the software and the ability to create a financial system, global financial system, that cannot be frauded. And we talk about fraud in our financial system. Look at that global headlines. These countries, at least we're somewhat reputable, and sure, there's a lot of banks that do a good job for their customers. Across the globe, though, Google the Australian banking crisis if you want to see a horrible banking crisis. 21 million.
No more than that.
21 million.
And 21 million, there's been, 13 million has been mined?
80% have been mined.
So that really, there'll be an end. There'll be no more beyond the 21 million.
So there are projections about how long that will take. Yes, there will be no more than 21 million, just like there'll never be more than one Mona Lisa. So, but those 21 million coins, keep in mind, they can circulate, right? Just because we've mined them, they can still circulate. And most people believe because, and once again, this is all speculative, most people believe Bitcoin was the first to market. So very early on, technology nerds like myself became very enamored with it. So we talk about it holding its value. Well, why did one technology nerd pay $20,000 for a rare Nintendo cartridge that's worth $5? So when these things are all mined and technology people across the world want to be the part of the first ever digital currency, they're going to hang on to those like investments, like pieces of art. And then if you want my Bitcoin that I'm holding because technology reasons, you're a tech nerd and you want the first ever, and it's going to cost you a price. You know, anything's only worth what somebody's willing to pay for it.
Okay, I consider myself to be relatively tech savvy, but when it comes to this Bitcoin business, I'm just a troglodyte. So
that's okay.
So I'm going to try to put this into a scenario, and I'd like you to explain to me how this would work.
Sure.
I'm selling a car. I expect to get about $19,000 out of it.
Okay.
And a guy comes to me and says, "I'll give you 3 Bitcoin for that." And at today's price, that's about $19,000.
Sure.
So, it's like I find out that that's what it's worth. It's like, yeah, that's what I was looking for. So now I've got these 3 Bitcoin. Do I somehow cash them into something that's completely negotiable, like a U.S. dollar? Do I hold on to them and sort of roll the dice that eventually it's going to shoot back up to 17,000 or 20,000 or whatever it might be? How does all that work?
So you can do any of those. And by the way, I have numerous friends who've actually bought cars on Craigslist using Bitcoin because Craigslist accepts Bitcoin for payment. And the seller, they choose what to do with that. They could hope it goes up, and it's going to go into their exchange just like your money would go into a bank, except for it's just all digital. And think about our banks, really. Is all that money when we do an ETF, that money's not being sent from this location to Europe. It's ones and zeros that are doing an ETF. Digital currencies, very similar. So you could store it in your exchange. There are things called hardware wallets. There's many different ways to keep it. The difficult thing, because it's in its infancy and there's lots of scams, is to keep it secured.
So I can, if I chose to, sell the car to him, get his 3 Bitcoin at 9 a.m. By noon, I can go someplace, bank, online, whatever, and convert that to currency.
You can convert it to fiat currency, sure.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Michael.
Yep. Thank you.
Great questions, too. Michael, thank you again for today's great program. To show our appreciation, the Toledo Rotary Club Foundation is going to make a donation in your name to the Rotary International Polio Plus Fund. And I'd also like to present this book, Historic Tales of Toledo, to you, too. Very enlightening. A reminder that there is no meeting next week because of Labor Day. Please join us Monday, September 10th, when we'll be back here with a speaker to be determined. Immediately following today's program, the Youth Service Committee will be meeting in the North Cape room upstairs. As past President Eric said, we invite anyone to go to that meeting to get a sense of what it's like to go through the vetting of the grant process. And you're invited again to any committee meeting at any time, just so you can see what it's like and see what fits your passion in Rotary. Thanks again, Ernie, for bringing Jim into the club. And Jim, we welcome you. Look forward to your involvement with us. At this time, I would like to invite past president and honorary member Chuck Mann to the podium to share his good humor.
No lawyer jokes, no midget jokes, small people jokes. Bennett Cerf died on this date in 1971. One of the founders of Random House, Cerf was also known for his own compilations of jokes and puns, and for his television appearances in the panel game show What's My Line? Here are a few of Cerf's greatest hits. Middle age is when your old classmates are so gray and bald and wrinkled that they don't recognize you. Politicians are like ships, noisiest when lost in a fog. Good manners is defined as the noise you don't make when you're eating soup. The Detroit String Quartet played Brahms last night. Brahms lost. And one more important date today in Navy history. 51 years ago, Herman James, a North Carolina mountain man, was drafted by the Navy. On his first day in basic training, the Navy issued him a comb. That afternoon, the Navy barber shaved off all of his hair. On the second day, the Navy issued Herman a toothbrush. That afternoon, the Navy dentist yanked 4 wisdom teeth. On the 3rd day, the Navy issued him a jockstrap. The Navy has been looking for Herman for 41 years.
Well, I hope you have a great week and a very relaxing holiday weekend. Remember to be servants out there so we can be the inspiration. We are adjourned.